Strategic, nigga. Strategy, nigga.
See, that's the way y'all thinking, right? I'm just telling you my opinion. And again, everybody ain't gonna agree with this. And I get that. Just like some people agree with you. And some of the things y'all said earlier, I sat around, I listened, I said, yeah, that's true. Okay, all right. Because again, I can disagree with anybody without being disagreeable. I can be like, okay, all right, I disagree with that, but I get your point. But just hear me out. Because again, when we're talking about, just family in general, when we're talking about the Black community and what are some of the common issues, and y'all said it earlier, like, common issues is, everybody wants to feel accepted. They want to feel accepted this, and they want to do that, and they want to do. I hear it from us family members, friends. They, I post stuff, and they're like, oh, the thing is, like, chasing what the white man has, and all of this. And the biggest issue with the Black community isn't even that. I mean, let's just go back to, when I was a kid in the Black community, everybody criticized the hood, right? I grew up in Pompano, Cali City, and, it was considered like a really rough area. But then I think about it and I look back and I say, it was rough, but it wasn't where we couldn't live and we were scared to walk outside. Yeah, you saw people, there was violence, but there's violence everywhere. But the thing is, they promoted it so hard in our neighborhoods, and then they amplified it so that it makes us look like we're inferior. When I was growing up, when I was really, and I'm talking when I was probably about, give or take, like 8 or 9 years old, 10 years old, that, the movie Boys in the Hood, they wanted that to come out with Ice Cube and all of them. And, the Pentagon approves every single movie, because they're not going to allow you to put out anything. And then whatever they want to control the narrative, they put that out. So they don't care if it's garbage in, garbage out. They're like, all right, we like that narrative. Even though it's misleading, put that type of movie out. And so they banned that because they're like, nah, that's just going to promote violence. And that's going to promote, things that we don't want, other races like the white kids trying to mimic that. What you see today, you see a lot of, what they call Black culture being mimicked by other races, from the hair to the clothes to the, you see the girls with BBLs these days. Back in the days, they had a rap song, look at her butt, it was so big, looks like one of those rap guys' girlfriends or something. I like big butts and I can't not lie. Now you see that every chick is doing it from every single race. The big boobs, the big lips, all of that stuff that they criticize, Black culture for. Now all of a sudden it's popular. The saggy pants, don't sag your pants. That's what gangster do. Now all of a sudden you go to stores, you go to H&M, you go to Hollister, you go to all these big time stores. Gucci and all of them are making oversized apparel. Shirts oversized. You buy a large, it's really extra large because you're supposed to fit baggy. You buy, pants, you buy a large, it's an extra large, but it's just baggy. So again, the stuff that we were criticized for growing up, hey, don't braid your hair, don't do this, is now something that they look at and say, wow, that culture is nice. So we're going to take that and spin it and now make it, positive and popular. And, again, when I go back to, when I was younger, you look in the hood and everybody criticized the hood, but, the drug dealers, they took care of the hood. You could see like the big time drug dealers back then. I grew up with the Gargamels of the world and all of them, and they riding around in they 6'4" Chevys, and you looking and you like, man, bro, like, yeah, that's what I want. I want to get them gold Daytons and them Goldies and blue cheese, with 8 or 6 switches and, the drop top Chevys and Chevy Impalas, and fix them up. And, you want to ride around in that Mustang like Menace to Society on, that Kane had a 5.0 on Dayton's. You wanted all of that. But then, you look at these movies and how they kind of killed the neighborhoods because, when I was growing up, you had community centers where the kids can go on the weekend, play ping pong ball, pool and all of that. You have boys and girls clubs, and you had, real drug dealers in the neighborhood that were looking out for the kids. They weren't selling dope to kids. Trust me, they weren't. They was promoting us to go to school. Hey man, y'all go to school. Hey Jit, man, I see you out there on that football field. I see you out there on that baseball field. I see you out there on that basketball field. They were promoting all the kids. Like, yo man, go be somebody. Because at the end of the day, that's what's been happening with our generation is over the years, we've kind of like got out of our element of black culture where we were promoting family. We were promoting togetherness in our hood, sticking together on every front. And then we allowed them to say, okay, let's start putting out these movies. Okay, now they approve Boys and Hood. Now it's like, oh, I want to kill up people, South Central, OG Killer Bobby. But you're missing the messages in there. Where Ricky was trying, he had a scholarship to go to school. And this guy decided because he bumped into him and they're fighting in the movie, now Ricky's dead. South Central, OG Killer Bobby, big time gangster, gang leader, goes to jail, big time drug dealer, comes out. Now he got to look out for his son. Now he wants to see the betterment of the future of his son, the same way Dion and everybody else is doing in the black culture. LeVar Ball, LeBron James playing until he's 90 years old because he got to be able to make sure Bryce and Bronny get their fair shake. But it's perceived as, oh, you're being cocky or you're being arrogant and you need to humble yourself. This isn't your, and we're going to teach you, who we are. And that's all about because of the simple fact of, everything is about them switching it up on us and them telling us that you want to be accepted, right? So you want to be accepted in the National Football League when you could take all them black players and say, you know what? We could create our own league and everybody's going to come and watch that. That takes development. I'm just giving you an example of how much control we could have because we did have it. We had Negro leagues. And they were like, yo, kid, those teams got talent. Black people are talented. Their stadiums are sold out. Black people are coming out watching them. So let's put a few of them in our league where they can do spectacular things. Let's put, Bill Russell and all of them in basketball. They're dunking the ball, layups, shooting jumpers, hook shots. They're like, wow, we haven't seen that. This is made up stuff. You think they had a book back then to say, okay, if you're gonna play basketball, this is what you need to do. You learn how to shoot a hook. That was all stuff that they were trying, and say, I'm trying to back him down. Let me just, throw it over my shoulder and see if, oh, that's a hook. All right, that's a good shot. Let me start doing hook shots. Football, O.J. Simpson and all of them, they come into the league. It's like, man, look how he running the ball, stiff arming, shaking and baking, doing spin moves. They weren't doing all of that. And you even go to baseball with Jackie Robinson and all them. Jackie Robinson taunting them on the bases. Throw me out. I'm taking big leads. I'm not going back to the base. I'm stealing bags. All of that, man. And again, for y'all out there listening, I'm just trying to, get you to see my point of view of how important it is to have family. And and again, I talked to a few people, just like I talked to everybody in here, and I heard the conversation. And people, some people have said to me like, well, you can have family, just as long as, the best thing to have is a two-parent household. Growing up in a two-parent household in a black family is crucial. Yes, it is. But also having a dad and a mom in the house is even more crucial. And I get that. A lot of people are saying, well, you can't knock, the LGBTQ, whatever the finished letters are. You can't knock what they're doing, and I get that. Nobody's knocking it. I can disagree without being disagreeable, because I have family members and friends that are, in the community, and I get that. But when I'm talking about having a father in the house, it makes a difference. Dion did a great job raising his kids. His kids did not come from poverty. They were privileged kids. My kids ain't coming from poverty. My son doesn't even know what that is. I have to explain it to him and teach him and educate him. Especially when it comes to black culture, black history. There's a lot of things me and my kids talk about. The inventors, the pioneers, the ones that really are trying to make a difference over the years for our black culture. But I also, as a man, because again, I grew up with a father. I grew up with a father that, and God rest his soul, rest in peace to my dad, but I grew up with a father that always talked to us. He talked to his kids. He explained to them about certain situations. He would tell my sisters, about a woman's worth. And, my mother was there where, she would speak to me, from a woman's point of view about being courteous and how to treat a woman, And my father would do the same thing about how to treat a woman. And it gave me a perspective to be able to see from a woman's point of view and a man's point of view.